All right, what's happening, my mathletes? That's right, Mr. Muscarella coming at you. And in this video, we're going to take a look at the very last type of our circular trig function problems, one which I like to call two clues. So when you have the two clues functions, that means you're going to be given 2 bits of information about a whole bunch of stuff. Now, the very first thing that we're going to be given is this sign ratio. So here is clue number 1. I'm just going to highlight it right here in green. So here's clue number 1. Now, sine being 5/8 is going to be one of our clues. The other clue is going to be this guy over here, where we're told cosine of theta is less than 0. So those are going to be my 2 clues. And when we get started with this, a lot of people just kind of like to figure out which quadrant, because it's going to depend what quadrant my reference triangle is going to be drawn in. So I take this given information. So sine being 5/8. So again, sine is my ratio of either opposite over hypotenuse, or, you know, here in circular trig functions, that's going to be y over r. So I know that the sine function is positive either in quadrant number 1. So I'm going to assign an x to the sine of 5/8. So that could be positive here in quadrant number 1, where everything's positive, all the trig functions, or over here in quadrant number 2. And then the cosine theta being less than 0, I'm going to assign that another variable, or letter, O. And I want cosine less than 0, so that means that is where cosine is negative. And cosine is negative in 2 quadrants. It is negative here in quadrant number 2, as well as quadrant number 3, because everything positive in quadrant number 1, and in quadrant number 4, that's where cosine is positive, because cosine represents the x value. Now, I have this thought process done, and where x's and o's are hugs and kisses, I now know that this triangle is going to be drawn in quadrant number 2. So with that said, let's draw our triangle here in quadrant number 2. So I've got this triangle, my reference triangle right here. And I know the y value is 5, and the radius was given to me as 8. So the piece I don't have, the one that is missing, is this x value. So I don't know what the x value is. But again, my angle starts here, opens all the way up. So that's going to be my angle. And I know, because here's 90 degrees right there, we got 180 degrees right there. So that angle, theta, whatever it is, has to be between 90 and 180. Because I didn't spin around multiple times. It's just between 90 and 180, and we're good. Now, with that said, let's take a look at part A here, where it says find the simplified version of secant of theta. Now with secant, I do need that x value, because secant, so this is all really still part of part A. I need the x value. And in order to find secant, I need the x value. So first, to find the x value, I'm going to take the radius squared and subtract the y squared part. You know, those 2 pieces right there. And the x value could be positive or negative. And this is where we got to be careful here, is to make sure we put that in right. So the value for x, so this is going to be like Pythagorean theorem. Only we're finding, instead of a's, b's, and c's, we're using x, y's, and r's. And anytime you're trying to find a leg of a right triangle, it's always going to be the square root of the hypotenuse squared minus the other leg you got squared, which in this case is going to be an r, which is our radius, which we have is 8. And then our other leg that we have is our y value here, which is 5. Now, being in quadrant 2, we're going to be using the negative version of that square root. Now, when I simplify that, 8 squared is 64, and 5 squared is 25. When I square root that and simplify that, I just get square root of 39, but don't forget the negative. All right, so that is the very first thing that I need in order to help me out here. So we just figured out what this x value is. That x value is this negative square root of 39. So all right, cool. So negative square root of 39 is that. Now, to find secant of theta, that's going to be the x value and the r value. So again, r is going to be on top, and the x value is going to be on the bottom. So when I simplify that, when we simplify that, the r value is going to be, of course, 8, and the x value is going to be negative square root of 39. Now we got to multiply top and the bottom, because we can't leave that like that. So this is one you want to be able to kind of start being able to look at and do in your head mentally. But when you do that, you'll get negative 8 square roots of 39, all that over 39. All right, so that is going to be the value of secant right there. So that's it for that guy. Then, when we got to find the reference angle next. All right, so for part B, let's go ahead and get after this reference angle. So the reference angle is going to be this spot right here. I'm going to just put a little blue dot right there. So that reference angle is what we're trying to find. Now, the trig function that we were given to work with is sine. And we have that ratio of 5/8. So what we're going to do is we're going to use inverse trig to help us find that. So we're going to take the arc sine of 5/8. So we'll start with that, and then we go to our calculator, graphing device, whatever we're going to use. But remember, if you are using a TI-84, please, please, please be sure you're in degree mode. And same thing if you're using Desmos. And if you're using Desmos, again, you go over to the wrench, and then you click on the wrench, and you change that to degrees. So make sure you're good on that. And then when you type in arc sine of 5/8, you get this value of 38.682. So that's the value, 38.682. And my reference angle has to be between 0 and 90 and positive, which this is. So my reference angle, which we'll denote using that little REF, is going to be 38.682 degrees. All right, so that's my reference angle. Now to find the actual angle, however much theta is, so when we go to, for part C, to find theta, now I know if that theta, if we kind of continue this all the way around, I would get to 180 degrees to get to the closest x-axis. So I want to start with that 180, so my angle theta, that's going to be 180 degrees minus my reference angle. And I already keyed that in what that reference angle was. So when we do this, again, because we're going to use the exact values right here, so we're just going to go here to this spot, and we're going to go 180 minus that, and we'll get 141.3178. So that is going to give us a value of 141.3178. Now, a couple options here for you. You got to go at least 3 decimal places, so you could keep going, and you're fine. Or you could write 141.317, or you could write 141.318 if you decided to round it. Any of those are okay. Just make sure that you're good, and you will be all set. Now, if this were a quiz, so let's go ahead and put some points on here. Of course, you get a point for drawing the triangle in the correct quadrant with all the information that you're given. You get another point for finding the value of x and clearly communicating that. You can't just have like negative square root of 39 show up out of nowhere. You got to make sure you organize your work nice and neat. And then you get another point for finding the value of secant. And then lastly, you get a point for your reference angle as well as your actual angle. All right, so those are how the points would be assigned on this particular problema. So make sure when you're doing the ones for homework or by hand that you do show all of those pieces to justify your work. All right, that's it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, man. You know I love you, I care about you. And I hope you have the most amazing day ever. Why not? No good reason not to. I'll catch you later, my friends. Peace out.